Hey guys, so as most of you would know, Alex Dowsett is going to have a crack at the world hour record again. So he uploaded this video to his YouTube channel explaining some of the supplements that he's using to prepare and execute on the day. So I'm going to play this through, but he just listed them off. He didn't actually explain how he's using them. So in this video, I'm going to explain how you could use them.
Yeah, I will be a good 3 or 4 kilos lighter for this hour record attempt than I was for the last one. And I think just better fueled and better prepared, like taking into account nitrate loading, beta-alanine loading, sodium bicarb for the day, utilization of caffeine, all these little things where science has moved on and we know more and we're now in a better place to sort of utilize that and make sure that I'm firing all cylinders on the day.
Okay there, so that's the 4 things he's using, but he hasn't actually explained how he's using them. So to explain how you could use them, I'm going to be basically walking you through the Australian Institute of Sport's fact sheets on these. I've mentioned this in other videos and I'm going to keep mentioning it in upcoming videos. If you want to know about proven supplements, Google AIS supplement framework, click that first link, and then the supplements that you're going to be looking at are the proven ones which are in Group A and Group B. So interestingly, actually, Group A contains the supplements which the AIS say have the most evidence and are going to be most effective. And if we scroll down, so they've got sports foods like gels, drinks and stuff, medical supplements, so like iron, multivitamins, calcium, then the performance supplements. And the 4 ones that Alex mentioned he's using are actually 4 of the top ones that the AIS recommends. So caffeine, bicarb, beta-alanine, and then nitrates. So that's 4 of the 6 that the AIS say have the highest level of evidence. So pretty cool. Like that's just like I've been recommending this AIS website before, and it's cool to see that a guy going to break the world hour record is using the things that me and the AIS are recommending. So that's really cool. Group B as well, not as strong evidence, but probably also worth a look. So Group B here, we've got polyphenols, vitamin C, menthol, and then collagen, carnitine, curcumin, ketones, these sorts of things down here. So if you're interested, have a read. I'll put the link below. But let's go through and break down the 4 things that Alex Dowsett was talking about. So starting with bicarb. Now you can access any of these if you want to go look at them by going to the supplement. So Group A, if we go to bicarb, click on it. And then the one I'm looking through is the athlete infographic. You can also have a read through the practitioner fact sheet, which goes into a bit more detailed information. But for most of you guys, the athlete infographic is the one you want to click. And that's what this is here. So let's have a read through. I'll just have a rough read through along with you and point out anything maybe that I can add to it. So sodium bicarb, which is just baking soda like you probably have in your kitchen cupboard, to buffer lactic acid. So they're saying here you can use bicarb soda mixed with water or cordial. I would recommend if you're going to do bicarb loading for your races and do it semi-regularly, I wouldn't use bicarb soda because it tastes disgusting. Even if you're mixing it with stuff, it's foul. So if you're going to do it, I would recommend tablets like they've mentioned over here. So Sodabic, so pill form, most palatable delivery form. Yeah, so a bit more expensive, but like $12.50 Australian for 100 capsules. Like that's nothing. So if you're going to be doing bicarb, steer away from the powder. And then what's this one? Effervescent tablets. Okay, so yeah, basically in terms of what form you're going to take it in, I definitely recommend the tablets. Benefits here, so buffers lactic acid that could cause buffered acids in the blood that could cause fatigue. Not necessarily lactic acid, more hydrogen ions. Anyway, just buffers the acidity of your blood. Improve metabolic function of muscle, improve performance. Yep. So what sort of events would this be useful in? High intensity events between 1 to 7 minutes. Sports involving prolonged, repeated high intensity bouts. Can be used to enhance training capacity and training adaptations when training is characterized by any of the above. So that's the thing there, as in this is usually thought of as like a race day thing to use, but you could consider using it in your key target sessions, just like I've recommended before in some of your most intense, harder sessions on the bike using caffeine. You might also consider doing bicarb loading for a training session to squeeze out an extra bit of power and stimulate some more adaptation that way. So basically anything high intensity, doing it for an hour record, that's probably stretching the usefulness of bicarb, but there'd be some small residual. Obviously the longer the event, the less impact the bicarb will have, but probably still beneficial. So how to use it here? You can have a read through this on your own. So basically it's an acute thing. So it's something you take before the session. It's not something you have to load for days or weeks. You just go, okay, I'm doing this effort on this day and I'm going to take it before. So 200 to 400 milligrams 2 to 2.5 hours before you start. So 200 to 400 milligrams per kilo of body weight, and then 10 mil per kilogram per body mass of fluid, and with a carbohydrate-rich meal. Carbohydrates to probably settle your stomach. So probably a lot of you probably have heard the doing bicarb loading and then shitting yourself. Can do that. So having some food with it could help reduce that. So they've got here calculation for a 70 kilo athlete. You've got 21 grams of bicarb soda, 700 mils of water, and 100 grams of carbs. And then there's some examples of what you could eat here along with that. So pretty simple, pretty easy to implement one, especially if you're doing your tablets. You just get your correct amount according to this of the tablets. Have your fluid, have your meal, and you go out and do it. But definitely practice this. As with any of these supplements, practice them before your race day. And then there's a little section here which is good, minimizing side effects. So to minimize the gastro upset. So start it far out from the event, as it said before, 2 to 2.5 hours before. Consume dose slowly over 30 to 60 minutes. So if you're doing like your 20 grams of bicarb, probably best not to just dump in your 20 grams. Maybe do it in like 5 grams. Excuse me. Could try doing it in like 5 gram increments every 10 minutes. Just slow down that uptake in the stomach. To prevent diarrhea, drink a considerable amount of fluid and then have your carbs with it as well. Then they've mentioned here a chronic loading protocol. So if you want to do it over a series of days as opposed to one dose, they're saying here higher daily bicarbonate dose up to 500 milligrams per kilogram of body mass for up to 5 days prior. And then you would be splitting that across different meals. So if you find having that bigger dose of 2 to 400 milligrams per kilogram of body mass in that one meal, if you find you can't deal with it and it's just not possible to even get 200 without feeling sick, then you might try the chronic loading protocol over days. So they're saying here, you want to be aiming for 500 milligrams per kilogram of body mass per day. So a higher amount you're taking in per day, but you're splitting it up across the day. So you're only having, at each meal, at each dose, you'd only be having 100 milligrams per kilogram of body mass, and then do that 5 times per day. So basically, it means you have to load for a longer period of time, but each dose is smaller, so less chance of upsetting your stomach. So if you're finding you're trying this way, and it's just not working for you, and you feel too sick, you might need to try the chronic loading protocol over a series of days. But I recommend try this one first. This is just easier. Like doing this for like 4 or 5 days, having it 5 doses a day, like that's a pain in the ass. I would try this one first, see if you can stomach it. And then some other considerations down here, which is worth having a read through. Next one, beta-alanine. Let's have a read through of this. Similar thing, available in powder or tablet capsule forms. But the thing with this is a bit more of a commitment because you're having to load. Beta-alanine isn't something you can just take acutely like you can with bicarb. You need to load it. So it says here, beta-alanine supplementation is required multiple times a day for at least 4 weeks to achieve meaningful increases in muscle carnosine levels. So you're loading it over a longer period of time. Benefits, so similar buffering of lactic acid, buffering of acid levels in the blood, fatigue resistance, improved performance. The thing with beta-alanine and then bicarb is that not all supplements work synergistically. So you might have a study and say, okay, beta-alanine improves your performance by 2%. Bicarb can improve your performance by 2%. If you take beta-alanine and bicarb for a race, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get a 4% improvement. And because you can't necessarily stack all your supplements. A lot of these things will affect the body in similar pathways, and that means the effect overall might be reduced. So just be aware that like if you're like bicarb and beta-alanine are improving performance via a similar pathway in terms of buffering of hydrogens. Now it's doing them in a different way, but it's worth considering that you can't necessarily, if you take beta-alanine on its own, it could have a strong effect. If you have bicarb on its own, it could have a strong effect. taking each two and combining and doing both at the same time doesn't necessarily mean you're getting double the impact, if that makes sense. So that's worth considering. Because yeah, I think I'll mention this in another video later on. But if every supplement on their own has like a 1 or 2% improvement, you can't find 10 of them and suddenly you improve your performance by 10, 15%. That's just not how it works. So keep that in mind, but worth a try. So when would you consider using it? So again, the short, higher intensity things, repeated blocks of high intensity. So for an hour record, you're probably not getting a lot of the benefit. The benefits will start to diminish off as the event gets longer, but worth a try. So they've said here, as an alternative to acute sodium bicarbonate loading if gut upset is an issue. So if you've tried the bicarb and it's not really working, you might want to try the beta-alanine. So how to use it? So your loading dose. So what you do is you load for a period of time and then you maintain. So loading dose, I would recommend doing the 6.4 grams of beta-alanine a day for 4 weeks, because 8 weeks is a long time to be doing a daily dose if you do the half dose. So 6.4 grams per day for 4 weeks, and then your maintenance dose. So 1.2 grams per day after that. And then they've said here, to be consumed at divided doses at main meals to further enhance uptake and better manage shingles. So you might not want to do like 6.4 grams in one dose. You might do two 3.2 gram doses at 2 times, at once, maybe once in the morning, once at night. Because they've mentioned here manage tingles, because beta-alanine causes what's called paresthesia, which is a tingling feeling. So you'll notice if you try beta-alanine, and especially in these bigger doses, you might be like, I've got this like tingling feeling in like my feet, my hands, other places in the body, which I won't mention, and it can be a slightly uncomfortable, unnerving feeling. So you might want to try the lower doses, which could minimize that effect. Let's have a look here. What else have we got? So 6.4, you might want to be, so they're talking here again about splitting it into even doses. An example here would be 1600 milligrams at breakfast, lunch, snack, and then dinner. Some other concerns and considerations. And interesting here that athletes who follow a plant-based diet may have lower levels of muscle carnosine. So if you're on a plant-based diet or you're vegetarian, beta-alanine supplementation might have more of a benefit to you than someone who eats meat. So that's pretty interesting. But this is the main one here. That's the this is how you actually use the supplement. So that's beta-alanine, definitely worth a try. Third one that Alex said he was using was beetroot, so nitrate supplements. So different ways to do it. I hate the taste of beetroot juice. So if I was doing using beetroot to do nitrate loading, I would use these shots. They're kind of expensive, but it means you can kind of just throw it down and not have to be drinking like liters of beetroot juice a day. So the Beat It Sport shots, which is just concentrated beetroot juice. And then you could obviously just use regular beetroot juice, but you're gonna have to drink a lot of them. Benefits of nitrate: so vasodilation, exercise capacity, muscle contraction and performance, immune health. When to use it? So prolonged submaximal exercise. So this is targeting more of the aerobic side of things. So regarding delivery of oxygen in the blood, not so much the buffering of acid in the blood. So probably more beneficial to the hour record, I would say. Definitely more of that oxidative thing, and even longer events like as opposed to an hour record. So something like maybe a Grand Fondo. So anything like that that's got longer than sort of 20-minute efforts is probably going to be more beneficial as opposed to the beta-alanine and the bicarb. So we've got here how to use it. Again, similar to the bicarb, you can use it acutely before the event or chronically over a series of days. So we've got here acute dose. You would take 2 to 3 hours pre-exercise, and you want to be having 350 to 600 milligrams of nitrates. Or chronically, which I would probably recommend. I remember the research when I was looking at it, using it chronically, you get a better benefit of it. So for 3 days before the event, you do your 350 to 600 milligrams per day for 3 days. And then you do your acute dose before the event, so your 300 to 600 milligrams. So a bit more expensive, especially if you're using these shots. It's going to cost you more money to use it chronically. But if it's a big event, like for the hour record, I'm guessing Alex Dowsett has more of a chronic loading plan that he'd be using. Little note here saying avoid using mouthwash or chewing gum. So nitrates, some of the uptake happens in the mouth. There's enzymes in the mouth that help process that through. If you're using mouthwash or gum, it can remove that. So some examples here. So for 3 days prior, you might do 2 beetroot shots, these beet it shots per day, and then two acutely 2 to 3 hours before the event. Anything else interesting? So food first. You can do this. I would. That's some. Have a read through this if you can be bothered. This is not saying if I'm going to be loading nitrates, I'm buying a product to do it. I'm not relying on food. Some other considerations here. Nothing too interesting there. So that is beetroot. Have a read through this if you're interested in trying that out. A good one to be using. Final one Alex mentioned was caffeine. So most of you don't know caffeine. Not too much to get into. So the benefits of caffeine are, is it mental? Is it physiological? Probably both. So nervous system alertness, reduced RPE, so reduced effort level, reduced pain, improved performance. Useful for so many things. So like long distance, high intensity, very, I think everyone's using caffeine for a whole range of different benefits. So this is interesting when they go into the caffeine intake guidelines. So they're saying here they recommend 3 milligrams per kilogram of body mass per day. And this is the bit that I like here, where they say this dose is less likely to induce side effects such as overstimulation, anxiety, and interfere with fine motor control. Right. So that was seen earlier in research using large doses of caffeine. So like a lot of the research uses like 7 to 12 milligrams per kilogram of body weight of caffeine, which is a lot. And I would say for something like an hour record, I would be erring on the side of less caffeine, like the minimum you need, like even 3 milligrams per kilo of body mass. I would say even for an hour record, that's a pretty big dose. Like for a 70 kilo athlete, let's say Alex Dowsett's 75 kilos or something, he's been having like 220 milligrams of caffeine, which is a pretty big amount, especially for an hour record, which is a time trial. He's on the track, the crowd's going to be cheering, there's already a lot of pressure, nerves, anxiety, adrenaline. Sometimes the caffeine can be overstimulating. So for you and me at home, if you're doing a time trial or like a one-off effort, I would err on the side of using a lower dose of caffeine. Even maybe just a coffee is enough to get you going, because what can happen is you have too much caffeine, you get overstimulated, your heart rate goes through the roof, and it can decrease your performance. Where you would use those higher levels of caffeine, so things like 5 or 6 milligrams per kilogram of body weight, even in multiple doses, would be over something like a Grand Fondo, a longer event, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours long, where you're getting to the, you're halfway into a 6-hour Grand Fondo, and you're not worried about you being overstimulated. You're starting to, the energy tank's dropping low. That's when you can use your higher doses of caffeine to boost your arousal level, which you're really going to need. But for something, again, like a time trial, I would you just be very careful, because it's tempting on race day, like, oh, I'm just going to jack like a big amount of caffeine, and then you go out and you feel like crap, you're overstimulated. So, hey guys, just editing the video, and I'm in the caffeine section. There's one thing I didn't mention, which was really annoying me, and it's the timing of caffeine. So for Alex doing the hour record, he wants the caffeine to come in the second half of the event when he's getting more fatigued. He doesn't want to have that caffeine hit in the first 10 minutes when he's already going to be overstimulated with the crowd, with the adrenaline rush and things like that. So caffeine uptake hits maximally between, sort of depends on the person, but 30, 45, even up to an hour after taking it. So he'd probably want to having his caffeine dose just before he starts the effort. Maybe just before he leaves the start pen and goes onto the track, have the caffeine dose so that for the first 15 minutes to 20 minutes, he's not having much caffeine circulating his system. Then he's sort of halfway through his effort, fatigue setting in, then his caffeine levels are rising in the blood and having the effect. So he's not too overstimulated early in the effort. So you need to consider timing with your caffeine, especially if it's like something like a crit. Consider when you're wanting that caffeine dose to have its maximal effect. Anything else here of interest? Food first philosophy. I'd be cautious as the food first philosophy for caffeine I don't really like, because if you're having coffee or chocolate and things like that, you don't really know exactly how much you're getting, especially if you're at like the track. Like if Alex Dowsett's getting a coffee from the coffee cart at the velodrome, he doesn't know how much caffeine's in his coffee. So he'd probably be using a measured amount by they've got here like a no-dose tablet, or like an energy drink that has a measured amount on the nutrition label of exactly how much caffeine he's going to be getting. That's it, guys. Check out these info sheets down below from the RAS. They're really well put together. Hope you got something out of this video. Thanks, Alex, for doing that video and making this information public. It's been really interesting. And I'll catch you guys in the next one.